Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Bottom Line. My name's Don Arleth. This is where we bring you the main business and economic stories of the day. Of course, my name's Don Arleth. I'm in for Marie Cato this time. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, Poland is moving forward with plans to build its first small module reactor thanks to a new partnership between Polish and Canadian companies. The aim is to have the technology up and running within the next decade. Supporters say that SMRs could provide a faster and more flexible path to clean energy.
A few signatures and the vision of small modular reactors, or SMRs, is one step closer to reality. Orlen, Synthos Green Energy and Canada's Ontario Power Generation have put pen to paper on a letter of intent which aims to bring the technology to Poland.
We are working with them and collaborating with them, trying to get on from our Canadian friends all the expertise, knowledge, lessons learned, and good practices that they develop during the construction and then preparation for commissioning, and then starting operation.
OPG is currently building the first of 4 planned BWRX-300 modular reactors as part of the Darlington new nuclear project. And according to the head of the company, SMRs offer several key advantages over their full-scale counterparts.
They're smaller and quicker to build. And so really it allows you to react more quickly as your demand starts to change and where you need power. A large reactor can take 10, 12 years to construct, whereas an SMR can be done in 3 to 4 years.
The estimated cost of the first reactor is 3.8 billion euros, with all 4 totaling around 13 billion. Similar costs are expected in Poland. However, the most crucial factor is that the cost of the energy produced by SMRs is expected to be competitive with other sources.
The cost of generation for the small modular reactor that we have chosen, the BWX-300, is in line with renewable, with the added benefit of dispatchability, which was discussed earlier, and being able to produce baseload clean energy.
Paweł Gajda, the head of the government's nuclear department, stressed that like with every major energy project, state aid will be necessary, but the extent of it remains to be seen.
As often happens in large infrastructure projects, you can assess the cost more or less only after. So after the first unit in Canada, we'll know much more what's possible here in Poland.
Officials are optimistic that SMRs will start supplying electricity to the Polish grids by 2035. This is in line with assessments by experts who caution that the development of the technology is still at its early stage.
So the SMR reactors are the future of the nuclear power. So they will be implemented commercially soon. And the question is, what does it mean soon? Soon it means not 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, but probably 10 to 15 years.
Orlen Synthos' cooperation with the Canadians comes amid an SMR craze sweeping Central and Eastern Europe, with almost every country announcing partnerships or interests in the technology. Last week, Czech Prime Minister Petr Fiala was in London discussing nuclear technology with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer after the Czech state-owned power company CEZ selected Rolls-Royce as their technology provider for the country's SMRs and even offered to take a 20% stake in the business.
I see great potential for our cooperation in energy sector, especially in development of small modular reactors.
With so many countries moving forward with their SMR plans, it looks like the Central and Eastern European region may soon become a global test bed for the new technology.
Orlen, Synthos Green Energy and Canada's Ontario Power Generation might be the companies to bring the first SMRs to life here in Poland. If you're not thinking and planning for the new nuclear technology, you're already behind the game. And now joining us to discuss the advantages and disadvantages of SMRs is our guest, Wojciech Jakubik, founder of the Energy Security Center. Hello, Wojciech, and thank you so much for joining us on The Bottom Line.
My pleasure.
Now, looking at these SMRs, why does Poland need SMRs, first of all? And, Poland's already building this traditional nuclear power plant, the big one. How will this contribute to Poland's, I guess, energy security overall?
Mm-hmm. So I would be more general with this statement that Poland obviously needs nuclear energy in general, no matter what source of this nuclear energy would be. So we have different technologies. Some of them are on the ground working perfectly, like AP1000 in Georgia, US, or the AP1000 which is to be built in Pomerania region in Poland. But in the same time, we have different new technologies that are being measured, that are tested, that might be implemented in future. And this is about SMR, so small modular reactors. It is something different from the large-scale nuclear power plants that we know from the past, from the existing technologies that are in place right now. It is something new that is to be tested. The first of a kind of such reactors from BWRX 3000 technology that is assessed by Orlen and Synthos is to be built in Canada somewhere at the end of this decade. And in Orlen's strategy, we also have SMRs up to 2 reactors until 2035. Why? Because it could be a source of cheap electricity for the industry, and the industry needs a clean and cheap energy to provide the market with attractive price of its products. So it is an attempting idea that is to be realized, that is supported, but we are in the phase of scientific research preparation. We are not having any SMR in place. So as it was mentioned in your material, we'll see about the costs. We'll see about the real costs of SMRs when they go online.
Right, in Canada, as they mentioned in the report. Now, in your understanding of at least what Poland's trying to explore right now with, getting this detailed knowledge of the construction of SMRs, what type of customer do you think that they're shooting for? Are they shooting for a large industrial consumer of electricity, one single customer, for instance, or are they looking to even add this to the grid and to, provide that reliable base load energy across the grid? I mean, what type of application do you think this will fit the best?
So obviously, SMRs are a solution for big enterprises like Orlen, like Synthos, like many other companies that are looking for cheap and stable energy sources, because it is possible to build such SMR just on your ground, on the place you are working, near to your facility, and to get the electricity without the intermediaries, without the cost connected to the grid and so on, and without the CO2 emission, obviously. So it's something different from the systemic solution, which is the big scale nuclear power plant that is important for the electricity network, for the system, from the point of view of the whole country. It is a good solution for the enterprises, for the businesses to go green, to go less emission, to decrease the cost of electricity generation. And looking from this perspective, you need to have a whole fleet of such SMRs, because only one is not enough. You need to have an effect of scale. That is why they are thinking about several reactors in different locations in Poland that are connected to heavy industry. And this industry is refinery sector when it comes to Orlen, and chemistry sector when it comes to Synthos.
Now, you said cheap, reliable energy these SMRs would provide, but just how cheap? I think the jury's still out on that. What are your expectations? I mean, compared to other sources of electricity, if we compare them to, renewables, or even, coal, or these, the big power plant that Poland is going to build by the mid of next decade, where does SMRs fall in that?
So it depends who you ask about it, because of course, obviously, the supporters of SMRs argue that they will be pretty cheap because of the effect of scale. But the contesters of this approach assume that the first SMR would be more expensive than the big nuclear power plants, and the competition between those two sources could be disadvantages from the point of view of general energy strategy of Poland. So it is to be decided, because until we go online with the first reactor, we won't know. We need to check. It is like with every innovation, you need to invest heavily to check if it works, and you can also fail in this process. But I keep my fingers crossed for the first reactor in Canada that is to be ready until the end of this decade. We'll see how it works. That would be the first of a kind that will show the economics behind the SMRs, because the idea is smart, the idea is great, but we see how it works in real life.
We had a graph I'd like to put up there and show. It's showing us basically the scale here, right? And I think that's exactly what you're talking about. New technologies always take time to catch on. We saw the same thing with renewables. And then I guess the big question after we look at this graph and see the best case scenario and the worst case scenario, the best case scenario by about 2040 coming on par with the traditional nuclear power plant, and by 2050 in the worst case scenario. So I guess the big question here is, the timeline for deployment, and how much should the Polish government participate in projects like this?
So there is no nuclear project without the state support. We know it from the history. We see support from the Phoenix program to SMR technology that is described in this material. So we see that nuclear projects need to get a stamp from the state, need to get the cash from the state. So there is a possibility of some support. Even the Orlen inclusion in this project is a kind of state support, because we can wonder, if there is no Orlen involvement in this project, would it even go further when it comes to development? So there is a huge need of state support, state assurance, maybe some kind of state agreements when it comes to financing. We know it from the big scale power plant project in Poland that is getting 6 billion zlotys support from the state coffers. So we'll see about the solutions for this project, but it's not only business solution. You need to have heavy state support in any nuclear project.
And you think are you confident that the Polish government will want to participate in such projects? I mean, if we're talking about 13 billion US to start off for the first 4 reactors, that's a good probability?
Well, we have the SMRs in Orlen strategy already. They want to have 2 SMR reactors in 2035. So if this will is sustained, if the state support is coming to Orlen, it would also support SMRs. But we always can update the strategy and erase anything that is not necessary in times of energy crunch, in times of economic uncertainty. We count every penny.
But in the Polish national strategy, have they been included?
They weren't included in the state updated nuclear strategy. It is really interesting, because previously they were mentioned in projected updates of this strategy. Now we have a project that is under consideration of the society. Anyone can have an input in public procurement of this document, and you don't see any SMRs in it. But in the same time, the Ministry of Industry of Poland is assuring that it will show some documents, some guidelines for anyone that is willing to proceed with SMR technology in Poland, how to do it, how to cooperate with the government. So I believe the Warsaw approach is to stay behind and to look what is happening and to act when they are ready, when they see that SMRs are really working, and we are not in this phase yet.
Right. We first got to get there. So it seems like those first 2 units will be big deciders. Now, what is the timeline, in your opinion, for the deployment of SMRs relative to Poland's increasing demand for energy?
So SMRs could go online in 30s, somewhere in 30s. It is an optimistic scenario, of course, because if we have one online in Canada in 2028, 2030, we would need several years to translate the license for the European needs, to transfer everything from the Anglo-Saxon world to the European standards, to standardize it, to get a stamp in Europe, to get a stamp in Poland. You need to develop the sector that is underdeveloped right on the big scale nuclear project right now, that is lacking the skills, that is lacking the people for the nuclear sector. So the big risk around a general nuclear strategy in Poland is a big contest between several projects from which we need to choose. And if the state is to choose, it needs to choose the nuclear power plant in Pomerania and the second one somewhere in central Poland in conventional nuclear technology, because it is important from the perspective of energy security of Poland and the grant security strategy when it comes to relations with US. So BWRX 3000 is a wonderful technology, promising technology, but it is a kind of innovation for a business circles. And when it comes to a grant strategy of Poland, the first priority goes to big nuclear project in Pomerania.
And now, if we're looking at pure commercial projects where companies foot the bill, is there anybody that we can point to in the Polish economy that would be able to foot the bill for such a large investment, right? To the tune of like $4 billion to produce one of these SMRs and then, of course, exploit the electricity that it generates.
So we've had such a long discussion about supporting nuclear projects from the resources of different companies. We even had this conglomerate between Orlen, KGHM, Tauron, and other companies to support the state nuclear project like 10 years ago. But it didn't work. We see in Europe that you need to have a solution on state level. It is a contract for difference, a kind of state support that is needed to make nuclear projects work. That is why Poland is providing 60 billion zlotys of state support for big nuclear project. And if we are willing to go with the SMRs, to go further with SMRs, we need to have some kind of such mechanism in place if there is a will to make it work for real. So we didn't see it yet. It is not said we won't see it, but we're not in this phase yet.
Okay. Now, Wojtek, I'd like to ask you about the recent discovery of Central European petroleum, which contains an estimated 22 million tons of recoverable crude and condensate, along with 5 billion cubic meters of commercial-grade natural gas. What is the time frame for development of this field, do you think, and how will this discovery contribute to Poland's energy security?
So every drop counts when it comes to security of supply, and every drop you extract from your own soil is the cheapest drop of oil or a cubic meter of natural gas you can get. So it is interesting how it will turn out. We are in the phase of exploration. We'll get more geological data further in future. Then we would need to get a license for production. Then we would need to get some agreement between this investor and some companies like Orlen mentioned before, or some other big hydrocarbon company willing to develop those resources. And then we would need to build a heavy infrastructure like the gas pipeline from the Wolin island to the mainland in Poland. So there is a lot to be done. The volume that is measured there is not very big, because it is like 1 year of oil consumption in Poland, almost 2 years of gas consumption in Poland, but it's always adding to the security of supply. So it is a worthwhile project, but we are in early stage. So the worst thing we can do is to give some hopes of Polish Kuwait or something like that. We are not in this phase yet, but it is a promising project to be developed, hopefully with some involvement from the state enterprises.
Right, and hopefully some more exploration can be done there. There could be more. Wojciech Heklubik, founder of Energy Security Center, thank you so much for joining us on The Bottom Line. Appreciate it.
Thank you too. Have a good one.
And that concludes The Bottom Line for you today. I was your host, Don Arleth. We'll bring you the best of the regional business on Monday through Friday at 5 CET on TVP World. In the meantime, for the latest regional business, follow us on X and go to tvpworld.com. That's it from me for now. Thanks for joining us, and goodbye.